Okay, so you also have that. We have networking events, which we had last week, where you can come and meet other researchers, class visits, where we'll go and talk to classes about like how to make a poster, how to make an abstract, or talk about what research is. And the big thing that we do is help plan the undergraduate research symposium, which is going on next term. And we'll have a bunch of workshops for that as well. That did not move. Also, exciting new announcement. We are also looking to recruit undergraduates to take over for next year. So we have a couple options, or like a couple open positions, which will be the lead coordinator, which is my position, peer mentors, and we have several of those positions available, social media, workshop, which is Tillie's position, and events coordinator. And we'll be emailing the link to this application out probably later this week, and it'll be due probably about the end of week 3 in spring term. So if you're interested in that, feel free to stop by office hours to come and talk to one of our peer mentors about it, or just email us if you have any questions. But with that, we'll go ahead and introduce the team. So we have our social media coordinator, Genevieve, who's not here, Tillie, Alexis. We also have our 2 other wonderful peer mentors, Carly, who is in biochem, and also Madeline, who's in psychology. And then we'll talk a little bit about us. So I'm Isabelle. I'm the lead coordinator for Assure. I'm a 5th year honors college student. I'm currently majoring in neuroscience, and I've worked in the smear lab for about 3.5 years now. And I've also worked in other labs throughout the U of O and also off campus as well. And I've actually received several awards from the U of O, such as the Peter O'Day Fellowship for Biological Sciences, the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship, and also a mini grant and conference funding, and also been part of the Hours program. So I have a lot of experience in this realm, which is really cool. Then we have Tillie.
Hi guys, I'm Tillie. I'm the workshop coordinator. I use she, her pronouns. I'm double majoring in linguistics and Spanish, and I have had the pleasure of being involved in a lot of linguistics research. I'm a member of the speech perception production lab. And so I've spent a lot of my time as an undergraduate research assistant investigating the relationship between linguistic perception and production. And I am doing my honors thesis in perception of pauses in Spanish-English bilingual speech. I had the pleasure of having the VPRI Summer Fellowship in 2020 and the CURE Conference Travel Award, which allowed me to go to NCURE virtually. And I've also received outside funding from the Robert Young award from the Acoustical Society of America. And so helping undergraduates secure funding is something that I'm really passionate about. I think that it's a great experience, especially over the summer, when you have this really large block of time to really focus and dig into the research. And for me, it was a great time to develop new skills, really dig into what I like about research. And so I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it.
And then we also have Alexis.
I hope that the audio isn't bad at all. Hi, everyone.
Close my audio for a second.
Thank you. Disregard the background. That's going to be for something I'm doing tomorrow. But hi, everyone. I'm a 4th year majoring in global studies with minors in sociology and legal studies. I am currently a humanities undergraduate research fellow. So the acronym for that is HERF. Which is another funding opportunity that you can do if you are in the social sciences. And my thesis is currently studying the Oregon sanctuary movement. But that being said, HERF is for like anyone that has a project and an advisor that can help you guide you through that project. It's been a really great experience so far because I've gotten to connect with other students in the humanities, which I think is a really rare opportunity to do so. And having that funding is always a nice way to like let you focus on your research and also validating you as a researcher as well. So willing to answer any questions about HERF or like the humanities research later on. Yeah.
Cool. I think this was your slide.
Oh yes, so this is just showing you guys what we're going to cover today. So we're going to help you break down the steps for securing funding for your research. We're going to help you figure out how to secure faculty mentors, and how we're going to break down the different kinds of programs that we have at the U of O for students to get funding through. We're also going to go through the application process, and that's going to include writing your project proposal. And we're also going to go through associated materials that are sometimes required for these fellowships, like CVs and things like that. So we touched on this a little bit. Summer research is a really immersive experience. Usually you're paid anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000, depending on the fellowship, to conduct your research full time. And like as this slide says, it does pay for anything you need. You can put it towards your food and your housing needs and things like that. And so, yeah, for the BPRI, it was a really great experience, and it gave me time to like design my experiment and things like that. So we're on the next slide, there's going to be a list of programs.
Yeah, also just as like a side note too for funding, these stipends, like the stipend you get is also not taxable. So you get the full $5,000, $4,000 to use towards whatever you want. So it's a really nice benefit to it as well, that it's really just all of your money to use for whatever you need. So this is kind of a breakdown of like how research for undergraduates works here in terms of funding. So we have like these kind of massive research centers, as you can see. The two biggest ones we have is the Center for Undergraduate Research and Engagement, which is kind of our parent organization. And then we also have why is my computer freaking out? Have the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, which also provides a large bulk of research. And these are probably the two that we'll talk the most about. But there are also scholarships and fellowships through departments that we'll also talk about. And those might be a little bit different, and also other programs through the U of O. And even then, if you can't find something at the U of O, there's also ones external to the U of O through distinguished scholarships, and also through other programs that we'll talk a little bit about as well. So I think this one was you.
Oh.
Well, we both talked about this one.
Yes, so this slide lists some of the opportunities available through the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. Isabelle, you said you received the UO mini grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, so on this list, I've received at least 2 of these. So what the UO mini grant is this is a $1,000 award that you can apply for. So you submit a project proposal for whatever you're working on. And this money is used for materials related to your project, if it's perishable, non-perishable. So if you needed to get access to a special journal, you could use that money towards that. You could use it for paying the mouse facility if you need to do that, or getting a new piece of technology. When we did it for my project, we used it for a graphics card for a computer. The only caveat is like the materials, whatever you use it for, like if it's a non-perishable material, stays with the U of O. So it's not something like you can take with you. So it stays with the U of O in the lab. Tillie got the Vice President Research Initiative, and that's actually where we met, because the scholarship I got, which was the Peter O'Day Fellowship, they had kind of a joint program of like professional development during the summer as well. So both of these fellowships are, they provide professional development. You also get the funding. They also help you apply for conferences. Both are a little bit different. For Tillie's, it was only for the undergraduate. So the undergraduate receives $5,000. The Peter O'Day Fellowship is a little bit different. It's for a undergraduate graduate pair. So it's actually $10,000 with $5,000 for the graduate student and for the undergrad. But both have very similar application processes. You just also have the benefit of the grad students also get some money. The PChem undergraduate fellowship is the physical chemistry undergraduate fellowship. This is like a specific RAU that the chem department runs. So if you're interested in like physical chemistry, I don't exactly know all the applications of it. That's a special one. There's also HERF, which Alexa said she was a part of. This one actually runs during the school year instead of during the summer. So this mostly runs in the winter and spring term, and I believe has a $2,500 award with it. Am I right, Alexis? Yeah. So it's a $2,500 award for the spring and summer, or for the winter and spring, and it also has professional development as well. The Presidential Undergraduate Research Scholars is also a year-long program. It's $5,000 over the course of the entire school year, along with professional development with Carl Reisner and the Night Campus Undergraduate Scholars, which is one of the bigger programs we have. This is an $8,000 award for working in a lab for the whole school year and summer. with a night campus affiliated or like faculty mentor within the night campus. So there are other labs that are like not in night campus, but closely tied to it, like my lab. And this is a year-long program. You have also professional development. They also help you pay for you to go to conferences and other things. And you get, I think the money is broken up into chunks every month. So this is a really cool opportunity too, if you're interested in more like science-based as well.
Yeah, and I will say that a great thing with these fellowships is we talked a lot about the money, but there's a huge amount of community that comes with these fellowships and these programs. Like Isabel said, we met
Yeah,
through these fellowships, even though we weren't, I had the VPRI, Isabel had another fellowship. And so it's also a really great way to connect with other undergraduate researchers, both within your discipline and outside of your discipline. And you get to also get one-on-one attention and one-on group attention from the folks that run URAP and CURE. And so it's not just money too, it's this whole experience. And I will say, like, a summer does sound like a long time, and that like there's so much you can get done. I know that for me, it really was just such a jump start for my thesis. I did my thesis in perception of bilingual speech, and so I was able to create my stimuli and design 2 of my experiments and collect data for 2 of my experiments. And so it's a really great opportunity to meet other researchers and be super productive in your own research too.
yeah. And when I did mine, granted, like mine was during COVID and most of my stuff needed to be done in person. And we had somebody do like the in-person parts who lived in Eugene, but for me, I got to do a lot of background research on, the mouse model we wanted to use. What is the current research, which is also super helpful for like literature. If you are writing a thesis at all, doing that, also looking at like coding techniques and like languages, which I didn't really know at the time. So that's also, it's like, there's a lot of different ways you can use that time to build whatever project you're working on. But it is really like just a great opportunity. When I did another program that we'll talk about later, which is called Ours, when I did it in the summer of 2019, we actually got to go on camping trips. We went on 2. We went to Cape Fargo, which is on the coast near OIMB. And then we also went to Pine Mountain, which is the observatory that the university owns. We got to go like stargazing, which was super fun. It's just like, it does really build a fun community. Like I'm still friends and talk to quite a few of the people I knew from that program that were not students at the U of O. So it is really just like an amazing opportunity, like no matter what program. So this is kind of a timeline of like when each of these fellowships are due. So like VPRI, undergrad, like PChem and Peter O'Day, those are going to be due this spring. I think they're all due around April 22nd from what I've seen. Night campus is due in the fall because it's for the following year. Humanities is also due in the fall because it's for the following spring or winter and spring. And the research, the one thing I will say is the mini grants are usually year round. So they have one deadline in the fall and then one in winter for the following term, which is really cool. And then PERS is a little bit special because it is a year-long program that it's decided in the summers. So you can also, like, we'll send you all the links too for each of these websites, and you can find these as well.
And I'll also say, get started early. Those
Oh my God,
sound like
yeah.
they might be a long time away, but especially for drafting your first kind of proposal, which we're going to talk about the anatomy and how to do that. That's a time-intensive process, and it's one that requires a lot of support from your faculty mentor. And so really encourage you guys to reach out to your faculty mentors and start getting their support as soon as possible.
For sure. Yeah, you have about like a month and a half as of this point, but it definitely helps to get more drafts, as many drafts as you can before that period. So now moving on to the ones from CURE, they have a couple, and these are a little bit different. So the two primary ones that they have are the first year research experience award, which is called FIRE. And this is for any first year student wanting to get involved in research for their summer going into sophomore year. So you don't have to have a faculty mentor at the immediate moment. If you can identify a couple, they'll help set you up with that faculty mentor, and they get a $4,000 reward with $1,000 for the mentor as well. And the one thing I will mention too, all of these for CURE and some of the ones for UROP are open to any discipline. Like if you're in business, if you're in history, if you're in languages, like there's so many opportunities for you to be involved in like anything. It does not have to be science. So FIRE is open to any discipline, and same for the SURF award. And the SURF one is also meant for students who have a faculty mentor identified. And again, you can also be a freshman. There was certainly freshmen in my surf program this past summer. Wait, who was that? I was like, who is that? Somebody was taking a photo of us outside. It's Jessica's sister-in-law. That's funny. So I thought it was Lange. That's why I was confused. She would though. So SURF is also available for first years as well. If you have a faculty mentor identified, it can really, like, there's no age or year limit. You just have to be enrolled for the following year is the main thing. Conference travel awards are also available all year round. I will be applying for one for conferences this spring. This gives you $500 to use towards registration, hotel, travel. I know Tillie said she's gotten it before for conferences, and it's really nice and really helpful to be able to go to conferences and go to cool places like Anaheim or Baltimore or Texas on someone else's dime. So it's really a fun experience, and I highly encourage applying for them if you're interested in going to conferences. And the small grants are actually a new award that CURE's come out with, which is very similar to the mini grants. And these are kind of the same timelines. Both the SURF award and the FIRE award are due in the spring, literally, I think also April 22nd. So you have about a month and a half. And the small grant and the travel award is like on a rolling basis.
And I will say also, I found the conference travel award to be very easy to apply for
Yeah.
after having drafted my VPRI application. And so if you've drafted one, even if you don't get that fellowship, still apply for the conference travel award.
Because honestly, most of them are very similar applications. You have to do minor modifications to submit for others. And then even outside of, you know, CURE and Europe, there's so many different opportunities. So I'll pull up some of these hyperlinks as well, if this will let me. Maybe not. Oh, no, you can see it. Let me put it mouse. Yeah, so as you can see, this is like specifically for humanities. There's ones in like more specific areas. There's one for like creative writing, political science, linguistics, other ones as well. Like there's seriously so many different funding opportunities. Let me see if I can pull up any of the others. This is one, like this is an example of ones I found for business, you know, and these are all current faculty mentors who have written papers in business and accounting and finance and management and marketing, you know, so don't say that there isn't a research opportunity in business or other areas, because there absolutely is. There's ones for College of Ed as well. If I can find my mouse again. Where'd you go? I think it's somewhere over here. Nope. There it is. College of Ed. Back over here. There's stuff in the Prevention Science Institute, being able to work with families and kids, and also other ones, kids with disabilities. Like there really are so many opportunities at the U of O. It just can be a little bit, you know, it can take some time trying to find these. There's also ones too for art and design. You know, there's just really, there really is so many different kinds of fellowships and things that we have at the
And
U
so
of
if
O.
you guys are wondering who to talk to about these, you can always talk to Assure Peer Mentors who have open hours to help undergraduates get involved in research. Also talk to your professors and faculty mentors. They're not only going to know about these opportunities, but about external funding as well, funding that doesn't come from the U of O.
Yeah. And then also a really cool program too for the U of O that we have in a lot of other universities is a program called the McNair Scholars. So this is a nationally funded program for first generation students who are low income and people of color who are juniors and seniors. And again, this is open to any discipline. And this project or this program aims to pair you with a faculty mentor to help create a thesis project and also support you in applying for graduate school. It's really like I've met a lot of friends who are McNair Scholars at other conferences, and it's a really amazing program. They can provide you with like external funding to go to conferences. I've seen like them literally help students make their own business cards that have their LinkedIn on it. It's really cool. But they also have like very specific classes too for, you know, like how to apply to grad school, like how to write a CV, a resume, like all these different kinds of things. So it's a really comprehensive and just amazing program. So we highly recommend, if that applies to you, definitely look into that as well. And then external ones too. Like Tillie said, there's so many, so many, especially for STEM. There's something called research experiences for undergraduate students, and this is through other country or other universities across the US. These are also really cool. It's very similar to like what we do as a university. So it's like $5,000 to come to another university, get paired with a faculty mentor, do a small project, be able to present on it, go to conferences, and you get to travel and meet new people and go to cool places. So that's a really cool one, and I highly recommend you look into that if you're interested. And even through distinguished scholarships. The Goldwater is a really great one for students in STEM, which provides $7,000 a year for up to 2 years. So you get a total of $14,000 to use towards room and board, books, tuition, whatever you need. There's also one for doing doing an internship in Germany if you want to do that. I had a friend who did that this past summer. The Juniors Fellowship is more on international policy and doing a year, like post-bac year of research in DC. And the Gilman is also a really cool one. There's just so many opportunities really to get involved in research and get it funded, which is really amazing. Okay. You want to talk about this one?
Sure. So when you're applying for fellowships, you're going to have to talk a lot about your planned project. And so before you go to actually write your application, you're going to want to have done some research already in terms of like coming up with your research question, things like that. But you're also going to want to be able to synthesize the background that people need to understand the work that you're going to talk about and that you're preparing. And so we're going to talk about research proposals later in the workshop. Hi, Kevin. Some programs also require a resume or CV. And almost all undergraduate programs require at least some sort of mentor support, at the very least a signature, usually a letter of recommendation. And so telling your mentor that you're interested in these things really early is really critical. They're going to be really excited and want to help you with this. So getting them in the process early is always a great thing.
Okay.
Yes, and so now we're going to talk about how to find a mentor. There are so many ways, and I think this video, that the picture on the left links to a video I made last year about how to find a mentor. So there's so many ways. I think that the best mentoring relationships begin in the classroom. And so if you don't have a mentor yet, reach out to someone that you've taken a class with, that you thought the material was really interesting, that you thought you jived with. Professors are super friendly about things like this, and they always want to help undergraduates get involved. So reach out to someone that you've taken a class with. If you don't know someone that you've taken a class with right off the top of your head that you'd want to do research with, do some Googling, look on the department websites, look at the professors and what they're interested in doing and research wise, and either go to their office hours or send them an email telling them what you're interested in and that their research is interesting to you, and check out our tutorial on the Undergraduate Research Symposium YouTube channel. They can help you with that. And we've also hosted past workshops on how to get involved in research to help you with that as well.
And also peer mentors can help you draft these emails or find faculty mentors. So highly, 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 highly recommend go to our peer mentor office hours. And if you have a peer mentor, like a faculty mentor already, ask them about summer research. If they are willing to take you on as a summer research assistant, most are going to say yes. Like I have never really heard anybody say
People
no.
always need hands.
They really do.
Always need help
They
in
need
the lab.
hands.
Excited, happy hands.
Tell them which ones you're applying for and let them know what they have to do and when. Let them know the deadlines as early as possible. That is the biggest thing I will tell you for like applying for anything. If it's jobs, grad school, other fellowships, tell them early and I usually make a big Excel sheet of dates and emails and contact people or websites to give to faculty if there's a lot of things I'm applying for. It makes it easy so they don't have to go to search for it, and it makes it, the easier you can make it on them, the better it'll be for you and also for the faculty mentor, and they can give you, other like good points in your letter of rec if needed. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about project proposals. So this is again going to very much vary by fellowship. So SURF, BPRI, Peter O'Day, HERF, and many more do require a project proposal. So it's usually pretty short. It's not like some have word limits, some are 1 page. It really depends on the fellowship, but we'll kind of go over like more of a general explanation of like what you should be putting in it. Whitney had a question. So other than the research experiences for undergraduate students, are there any research programs that pair you with a mentor, grad student, or researcher? It really depends on the major. I know there are a few, one of which is the SCORE program, which is for students of color through the biology program. I'm not exactly sure how the application works for that, but I know that is one that does pair you with a faculty mentor. Tillie, do you know of any others?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time you really need to go and find it yourself. There are like a very few couple of programs that will pair you, like the McNair's program as well. But most of the time it's usually up to the student to find someone that they work with and that they're more interested in.
But I also think if you don't have someone in mind that you're interested in working with, talk to anyone in your department.
Yeah,
Professors, even if they're not looking to do research with a student right now, they're going to know who else has grant funding for those things. And so just talk to anyone in the department. They should be able to connect you with someone.
yeah, definitely. So kind of the basic parts of a proposal is kind of like writing like a research paper. So you have your kind of introduction, you have your thesis, like what are you trying to study, how you did it, what you may expect from the project, and what are the larger implications for the community, science, whatever it is. And one of the big ones for a lot of these proposals that I've looked at has also been your planned role within and responsibilities within the project, which is like, what are you going to specifically be doing within this project? Are you going to do the data collection? Are you going to run the mice? Are you just going to be assisting someone and like help input data? Like sources and citations are usually not included in this, like the page number limit. Okay, you want to talk about?
Yeah, so the introduction and background, I really like this part after having done this a few times and writing papers, presenting at conferences. It's kind of hard at the beginning, but you'll learn to love it. It's what does the reader need to know to understand what you're going to talk about? You need to give them a toolbox of ideas and information. And so it does not need to be a super in-depth literature review, just enough to help them understand what's been done before, why your research is important, and why they should care about it. Go super big picture. I like to say not just like the 10-foot view, not the 100-foot view. What's the 10,000-foot view about why this is important? And because the introduction and the background usually comes first, that's a super important thing to start with, which is why is it important? So that's some things to keep in mind when you're drafting your introduction.
Yeah, so kind of like how would it really kind of look, people always say in, your opening paragraph of like a research paper, it's kind of, start broad, narrow down. It really is the exact same idea. So talk about like general knowledge. So for like my field, it's like, okay, we study olfaction in the smear lab. So what is olfaction? Why do I need to know about it? Why is it important? Okay, what aspect of olfaction am I interested in? Other things that we know are really important in that very specific aspect of olfaction. And then what are we currently missing in that area that you're interested in? And then your hypothesis is more of like, what are you going to study within that specific area? So your hypothesis, thesis, and purpose is really like, what are you going to study and try to figure out in this project? The hard part too is like, we can't necessarily tell you how it's going to look because that really varies between disciplines. Like how Alexis's proposal and hypothesis would look very different from mine versus Tillie's. So in terms of phrasing it, really, I'd recommend talking to your faculty mentor about it to see what the best way to phrase it and how it look. But usually it's like, given XYZ information, we want to determine ABC thing in how this works within the larger context of something else. It's kind of like an example.
I think another good way to think of this is also like a balance between general enough that you don't have to have everything planned out to a T, and specific enough that they understand what you're doing. For me,
Yeah.
at the beginning, I went to my faculty mentor and I was like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. And she was like, that's fine. And so it does not need to be like incredibly specific, but specific enough so the people that are going to give you money know that you have a good plan. You have an idea of what you want to do. You have basic methods laid out. So it doesn't have to be perfectly fully formed, but specific enough for them to understand what you're going to do.
And also the other part of this too is like being able to communicate your ideas. Not everybody who reads these applications will be in your field. So also making it generalizable enough so that people outside your discipline can also understand it. If I started talking about like genes and codons and other things in like science to someone in business, they'd just be like, what? So try to synthesize it so it's also understandable for other people as well. And then for research methodology, this is really how are you going to answer that question? And again, this is going to vary so much between disciplines. So for someone in humanities, it's maybe going through databases, reading historical documents, or looking at like maybe artifacts, if that's something your research touches, reading books. Alexis, are there any like for your project you want to highlight? Alexis, you're muted. Yeah.
I guess for my project, it's like using certain software like throughout my really throughout like all of my thesis, but I've been learning how to use Deduce, which is like a coding software. And I know a lot of the social sciences like are really heavy on the software. And it's nice too because Carl Reasoner, who like you know, heads the program, has knowledge in that, and he can set you up with resources where you might need to do that as well.
So for like me, it's usually using like mouse models, also using coding software and odorants and other things. And for Tillie, it's going to look also really different too.
Yeah, we use a lot of creating auditory stimuli and using different kinds of software to administer experiments through a computer. So it's just talk to your faculty mentor too about this.
So it really is going to vary, but it's mainly how are you going to do this experiment or whatever you're researching. Then do you want to?
Yeah, so sometimes you are able to give some expected results of your project if you're like you have a pretty strong hunch about what's going to happen. But what I prefer to do, and what I've seen my faculty mentor do in other contexts that I think works well, is lay out the possible results.
Yeah.
You don't have to commit to any given outcome. Say this is what could happen, and identify really clearly 2 to 3 different scenarios that the data would show. And I think that that's also a great way to organize your thoughts going into the project and framing your results in that way.
And even then, the faculty, you know, those reviewing these applications know your data might change, you know, your plan might change, your results might change. You might find something entirely different out of left field, and they're not expecting you to prove said hypothesis. It's okay if you get null results, just showing that you have the ability to think through the possible outcomes of your project is more what they're looking for. And then also the broader implications are more of like, how will this knowledge impact the field that you work in? Will it be helpful for healthcare, developing drugs, adding new knowledge to a field that's been kind of lost or you're trying to revive? So it's just also kind of thinking about those things as well. Hey,
So the timeline of your research project, especially when you're applying for undergraduate funding with the U of O, laying out a timeline of when you plan to accomplish different tasks is really important. I think that some of the strengths of my application, both for internal funding and external funding, was the broader impact with taking the 10,000-foot view and having a really strong timeline. So this doesn't have to be a super detailed plan. It can be kind of a bigger picture plan, but make it a realistic plan. I like to go by weeks when I'm making my plan. For example, if it's a 10-week fellowship, I'll lay it out week by week. And so giving that some thought and understanding that that's going to have to be a little bit flexible too as you get going, but sticking with it is also a great framework to start your fellowship.
Yeah, and I look back at my previous applications for like SURF and for other ones, and I personally did my timeline is more like until graduation, because mine was a lot more like it needed to be bigger because there was no way I was going to achieve, you know, my entire project in 10 weeks. So you could say like during this term, because you know it might take longer, I'm going to try to achieve this, and then by this term I'm going to try to achieve this and then do this. So it's really just also looking, you know, your timeline can really be whatever's most relevant to you. But they kind of usually suggest also making one for just a 10 weeks as well. But definitely the other big part of it too is what are you specifically doing this project? You know, because maybe your project is like assisting a grad student, but they really also want to see that you're not just, you know, assisting, that you're also taking a role within this as well and being your own independent researcher. So are you helping find papers? Are you doing the analysis? Are you doing the coding? Are you assisting with finding articles with the grad student? Is it part of a team? Is it independent? So really being able to tease out what part is yours in this project is really going to be very helpful for these applications. And I definitely recommend having that conversation with your mentor and or your grad student if that's applicable to you. to figure out which part will be your portion of the project. Yeah. So we also got a question. So if you are seeking funding for part of a larger honors thesis, how do you frame our research as a part of a larger project, specifically an independent project? Yeah, and honestly, that's really common, especially for the sciences. So like I had that for my first summer of funding. Like I did like a sub portion of the larger project. So you can say that this is the goal of the main project, is to determine XYZ. My portion of the project, which is doing ABC, will help the larger project in this way. So that's so normal and totally fine. You can definitely still apply even in that context. It's just more making sure that you have your own independent part of that project to work on, and you're not just kind of, hanging around and not doing anything with the grad student. That's kind of more of what they are trying to say with your contribution. So finding some portion of it that you can do yourself as well. And then we have kind of some final notes and tips. Definitely, like we said, hash out the details with your faculty mentor beforehand, because that'll give you a way clearer idea of what you should be doing in writing in your proposal or in your questions just earlier. It makes it a lot easier to write once you know what you should, like what part is yours and what you're going to be doing. Definitely get lots and lots of feedback from your mentor, from faculty in Cure and UREP, like Lanch, or Carl Reisner, or any of the Assure peer mentors. We are all trained to be able to help you apply for these kinds of fellowships, and like we've all done it ourselves as well, in some frame or context. One thing I personally found, anytime you make revisions on a document, copy that document and make it into a new one, so you have a separate document full of the any revisions you have, so you can refer back to it. Look early. You are looking early and you're here, which is great. And also breathe. You got it, and we are also here to help. Alexis, any like tips, Tillie?
I think that Isabelle said a lot in there, and I really want to emphasize it's not just about getting the money to. I mean, it's just such a great experience for you to figure out what you're interested in, and what you enjoy doing. And so approaching it from that point of view too, I think will help you get the most out of your research experience.
Agreed. And I just want to add that I didn't get HERF. This is HERF was the third, I think, fellowship that I applied to. It is hard to get these, but don't take it personal, as hard as it is. It doesn't mean that you're not capable, and it doesn't mean that you won't get funding in the future, right? So just keep at it, and these tips are going to help you kind of hone in and create the best application that you can create.
And even then, worst comes to worst, if say you don't get a fellowship through the U of O, and if your faculty mentor has funding, you can also approach the conversation with your faculty mentor to see if they can fund you for the summer as well. Again, worst case scenario, that is also still an option, again, assuming your faculty member has funding. So really, there's a lot of opportunities. There's so many different fellowships. I also did the same thing as Alexis. I applied for 3 that summer, that I got Peter O'Day. Didn't get CERF, I didn't get VPRI, and then I got the Peter O'Day one. I was like, cool, okay. I was not expecting that.
I applied for multiple too.
Yeah, these are all very similar to that. You can apply for multiple all at once, totally fine, and just always keep at it. And we are here to help you find, even if you can't do it at the U of O, we can help you find ones external to the U of O as well. And then, like we said, we've mentioned peer office hours so many times. So here are our current peer mentors. We have Alexis, who's in global studies. Madeline is in psychology, and Carly is in biochemistry, but all of them, no matter what discipline you're in, should be able to help you find resources. They're all trained to help you no matter what your discipline is. Definitely scan this QR code to get added to our listserv to be notified for any future events, and also so we can send you the Assure application for next year if you're interested. But we always post up on our Instagram. You can always email us, and we usually update all of our workshops and videos. This will be on our website and YouTube as well. So you can rewatch this at a later time if you need it, but definitely scan it. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any other questions, stay on and we can answer those as well.
And the Undergraduate Research Symposium is happening next
Yes.
term. It's
Do
a
it.
huge event and it happens every year where undergraduates from all disciplines present all sorts of projects. You can present your honors thesis. You can present something that you've done in a class. We're going to be hosting a ton of workshops to help you prepare for that. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Literally, I think we have 4 planned, and we also have like peer mentor office hours used to talk about preparing your abstract or poster, your oral presentation, creative works. Like we help throughout the entire process. So we also have a question from Whitney. Do you have any tips on figuring out what your research question is? I'm interested in molecular neuroscience. So I think the best way to do that is, Whitney, I'm not sure if you have a faculty mentor already, is definitely talk with your faculty mentor to see what projects they currently have and if there's a subsection that you can carve out to make your own. That would probably be the best way I would recommend it. And then trying to think, yeah.
In my lab, we often have brainstorming sessions for folks that are trying to come up with ideas. For me, the idea phase is the most stressful. So once you get over that, it's kind of like smooth sailing. I think that, you know, for me, I had like 5 ideas and I thought that they were all very bad. So I think, but they turned out they were good ideas. So I think trust your instincts, read some papers, and talk to your faculty mentor.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do some research. I'm majoring in math
Mhm.
and maybe also computer science.
Yeah,
I was wondering if there are research opportunities for those disciplines, and if not,
absolutely.
if I would like join somebody else's research and like assist with the math.
Yeah, no, there's seriously so many people. I had a friend who was a math and physics major. He did research here all 4 years and got it funded through the math department. So there's absolutely opportunities. And especially if you're also thinking of computer science, there's a lot of ways you can be very beneficial, like on other areas, like I know for neuroscience, like that is such a needed area. Same with bio, physics, like there's so many applications.
Okay.
And I know the CS department has like a specific funding opportunity for computer science as well.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's so many different opportunities. Do we have any other questions? There's also no dumb questions. I can also stop sharing my screen too. Look, where did people go? I know, I'm trying to pull it over. This is always the problem with this. Where did and I also lose my mouse every single time. Okay. Also stop the